some who wear the badge feeling like they're wearing a target. Here's one more view from them.
27-year-old Rogelio Santander, a 3-year veteran of the Dallas Police Department, was shot Tuesday afternoon when officers tried to arrest 29-year-old Armando Juarez on an outstanding warrant. Police say Juarez shot Santander, his partner Crystal Almeida, and the Home Depot loss prevention officer. Both of them are still in critical condition.
You're going to be a trying time for us, so we're just asking for your support during this time.
After a frantic 5-hour manhunt and car chase, cops finally caught him. Juarez is now sitting in jail. The shooting happened almost 2 years after 5 police officers were killed in an ambush-style attack in downtown Dallas. Last night, Dallas Mayor Mike Rawlings questioned the community's relationship with his department.
All right, let's see here. I don't know. All right, Baha, looks like there's 3 of us. I mean, there's 6 of us on the dock, but only 3 viewing, so I'll wait for a little till we get more viewers. All right, well, there's 4 of us, so I'm gonna go ahead and start. All right, so we got period 6 here, and just taking a look at on page 318, we got chapters 16 through 19. So remember that this is going post Civil War, past Reconstruction. So we got industrial America, last West, New South, cities, American culture, and politics of the Gilded Age. All right, so coming through this, obviously this kind of is like the story of robber barons versus captains of industry. So I don't know, I think really the story of the industrial America is how the government responds to kind of big business. So go ahead and put that over here. These are kind of like the government one that we had for period 3, where we were talking about going from the Albany plan all the way over. This could be like a really good one that we do like a continuity or change over time. Is just talking about the relationship between business and government. So that one, relationship between business, government, and in there, I mean, that's such a big idea. You could be branching into all different things. Now, specifically, the idea of robber barons versus captains of industry. And, this one, I don't know if comparison would be good. We were talking about comparison, how comparison obviously is easy to find the differences, but it's so hard to find the similarities. So each have their kind of unique way in which they kind of do things. Obviously, this one would probably have a lot of similarities in which that relationship with the government. So there's those. So that kind of gets you through railroads. That gets you through kind of laissez-faire capitalism and social Darwinism and the gospel of wealth. Kind of going into some social things here. And I think with social things, I think like kind of a good idea to kind of look at in social is try to identify kind of an LEQ at the end. I mean, I keep on talking about these LEQs, why I think they're going to be really, really important. So I'm just kind of fast forwarding a little bit here to the page. Oh, wait, that's the short answers. We're probably not going to have one until the end, huh? Because we only have short answers there. But I'm actually going to go real quickly all the way over to the end of period 6 and go to the period 6 review. So that's on page 398. And see here. So there's that roles, you know. So look at question number 2 kind of hits what I was talking about earlier, relationship between businesses and government. If you look on page 398, we're on the period 6 review, and it has long essay questions. So what I'm trying to do right now is I'm trying to use the book to identify, okay, of all these social aspects, really what the heck are they looking for? Are they looking for women? Are they looking about the wealth issue? Like what's really going on? And like what kind of pops out to me as I kind of look at these things, you know, if you go on 399, you have this like random, like generic one about architecture, art and literature, and all those different other things. Social Darwinism and gospel wealth are kind of like social things. But kind of what I'm seeing is the word organized labor too. So socially, that's kind of something that's going to be kind of important. So I'm going to put here organized labor, and that'd be kind of cool to see actually a CCOT, like continuity change of time, like all the different organized labor, how it got strong and how it's adopted. And you could actually take this through many periods, as you know, because, you know, we've gone from an organized labor to it being pretty much struck down by military, by National Guard, by the government in support of big business, to being supported in World War I to get through World War I, to in the Great Depression, obviously, like just trying to, the federal government becomes just like the actual employer, so super unionized at that level, if you think about it. And then how it's kind of transparent through World War II, and then it becomes anti-union during this current time of period 9 of new conservatism. So, you know, organized labor kind of pops up. Definitely, let's see, social Darwinism as far as a social thing, and the gospel of wealth, and that kind of ties into the captains of industry we kind of talked about earlier. I'll probably go back through this and kind of say, you know, Tuca came to me and said, okay, so of all these, which would be the most important? So maybe that's something what we can do. And then we'll take care of those little questions as well. All right. So, you know, organized labor, you could have all the different strikes. Obviously that's involved. So organized labor, strikes, all those different things. And so obviously that's kind of huge during this whole Gilded Age. So I think that kind of takes care of that kind of first chapter, chapter 16, as far as like kind of big ideas, what's going on. Okay, last West, New South. On the West, what the heck do you need to know, if anything? Probably the Frontier Thesis and probably Indians. So that's all I'll do. So Frontier Thesis. I don't think you need to know about the cattle frontier or the mining. I mean, it's good to know those things to develop your LEQ, but what are they going to see? What are you going to see a multiple choice question on? What might you see a short answer question on? What could you use in an LEQ? The Frontier Thesis. So that's kind of like, you know, specific. Those things are a little bit more general. So Frontier Thesis by Turner. That's one. And then American Indians, you know, kind of, you know, during the 70s and recently, you kind of see the key concept become more revisionist, more Howard Zinn. And so our treatment of the Native Americans and the indigenous was really, really bad. So I could really see them trying to make sure that we have taught that as teachers on there. Sorry about that. That was a fly. Probably not even looking at me anyways, probably looking at the book. All right. So that was Turner's Frontier Thesis was 343. American Indians in the West, 343. Again, before this, we kind of had the Mayan frontier and all that stuff. definitely the New South, but let's get a little bit more specific about what the heck we should probably put in the New South. So specifically, Plessy versus Ferguson is again those court cases. Farah, who I see is on here, she's been going to Richie. If you guys remember from APO, Richie has a really good thing, and it's actually right now on my review page. So if you want to go check out on the review page, I actually put the links. It says review with Richie, and he's like coming out with a document of the important court cases. But Plessy versus Ferguson is definitely one of them, which legalized discrimination and separate but equal. So there we go. So there's that. That's what I want to know. That's probably a really big important thing to know there. Like that farmer issue at the end, the Frontier Thesis, the farmer issue. I mean, I think that's important, but if they're going to talk about farmer problems, I think they're going to be talking about like Great Depression and the farmer issues, and they're also similar. So I think this is one of those moments where, like, if you're with me right now, it's important that you are with me so you can hear what's going on, because like there's times that we should study sectionalism. I don't think we should be studying sectionalism in the 1800s. Let's say before the Civil War. This is one of those moments like, hey, if we're gonna do farmers, let's talk about it with the Great Depression, because that's one of the factors of the Great Depression is the agricultural issue, and the same issues happen, right? Technology, loss of war, the prices are getting depressed. So we'll talk about that when we get to that period. And again, I think that's one of the benefits that you're having by going on this YouTube live. So congratulations, you 11 to 12 people that keep on coming out. All right. So we're now on page 316, the growth of cities in American culture. Again, this is that kind of social thing, and it's kind of all over the place. This is my bias, though. Like, machine politics is just so interesting to me. So I want to put that on there. Is that really that important? You got temperance on there. We should probably talk about temperance, but why don't we just talk about temperance and the prohibition? So, once again, 360 to 375, it's one of those things as for me, like the social part of history seems to be so vague, and it's nothing specific that I would want to see in a multiple choice. I could see it in a short answer. So, I don't know. This would be cool to like do a little quick mind map just with like the headings, like, and that's something to think about just generally in social. Like, just know a couple of the items so that you can put a couple items on that LEQ and that short answer. I mean, we're kind of going to review about a couple items tomorrow about the short answer, not short answer, but the LEQ and the DBQ. I think that will like help you understand the rubric a little bit more. That's what we're going to do, I think, pretty good. So anyways, chapter 18, I wouldn't even touch it. I think it's like a mind map of something. So there you go. So now we're on chapter 19, the politics of the Gilded Age. And see, that's where like the machine boss politics might come up, right? So what do we need to know about all of this stuff? I don't know. Cleveland, civil service reform, Harrison. I mean, this is where the heck we were going to talk about earlier, the credit mobilier. This is where, like, I don't know, credit mobilier seems to make a lot more sense. It's just this idea of the corruption of government. But that's not really being put in here. So obviously the populists seem to be a very important group. They kind of transform themselves into the progressives as they kind of grow more and more people in there. So I would probably just say you gotta kind of understand. I'd say Gilded Age and the rise of the populists. I mean, it just says that the rise populists, but I mean, what the populists are responding to, the problems of the politics, I think explains the politics of the Gilded Age. So, I'll kind of focus on it's a reaction, right? It's a reaction, so it's cause effect, right? Like, you tell me about what the Gilded Age, what was the problems of the Gilded Age, and I'll show you the effect, which is the populists and what they stood for and why they tried to solve it. So I'm gonna put causation in there for you guys. And I think that would cover like almost all that chapter, right? Like why the populists came up. And I think that gets us to period 6. So once again, take a look at 398 and kind of see like, hey, if on 398, would we be able to answer these questions? I think you would have killed it based off of our key terms that we just written down for 1, 2 for sure. 3 a little bit more. 4, yeah, I would hope you understand like market and the railroads. I mean, that's pretty much all you have to say there. Probably 5, we didn't include Chinese Exclusion Act, which is probably very important to what we talk about right there. And also, but you got the American Indians, you know, so there's the internal and there's the external. Also Mexican Americans, you know, type of stuff. That's probably in that social thing. So yeah, see on these LEQs, man, some of it's, you know, 5, 6, and 7 are just those moments of social where, you know, I think that little mind map of that chapter would have killed it. So I don't know. Thankfully we get choices, right? One's political, one's economic, one's social. We don't have to do the social one, right? You know, the new test, there's going to be 3 choices for the LEQ, and you get to choose one of them. So let's hope on that one. All right, so I think we're in period 7 now. Period 7, trying to get to my. All right, this is the part of history I enjoy. And so when we become an American superpower, or not American, a world superpower, and start enforcing our will on everybody. Good times. All right. So wow. I mean, just look at those chapters right there. You know, I mean, I think we could just talk about those right there. So, I mean, I don't know. I could probably develop my key terms just on the chapters. First of all, we know that the war that's becoming a world power would be the Spanish-American War. You know, if you did the causes and effects of that, you would kill it because you would be doing like yellow journalism, the blowing up the Maine, the fact that we just created Navy, the sea power, the history of sea power on the world, you know, which is an influential book talking about naval power was the most important. So we started developing a impressive Navy, and we don't just going to create a Navy to hang out in docks of New York and San Diego and San Francisco. We're going to use a Navy to blow things up. That's what we do. So anyway, Spanish-American War, causation. I think if you do that, you got it covered pretty well. You know, I don't know if Farrah's still on here, but be pretty interesting, Farrah, if you were to check out like his, you know, again, going to that Richie, if you guys want to, on the period 9 review, there's Richie on there. And if you look at Richie, he has like his videos that he's done in different units. Well, he has like kind of like 5 of the most important. So I bet you like he has one on the Spanish-American War. All right. The progressive area, obviously know the progressives. I would definitely try to do a comparison with another group from another time period. Try to do the anti-federalists. So I'll put that as a recommendation in italics here. Try with another political group. Like, do one that you don't know. Hey, if you know, because you guys probably all know the Federalist Anti-Federalists, so why don't you do Jackson's Democrats? You know, like do one you're like, I totally don't remember about what the heck was going on, and I do a comparison template with the progressives. How were they similar? How they were different? That'll give you great stuff for continuity and change over time too. Just knowing political parties and how they developed. World War I. I mean, there we go. Cause and effect again. Again, we're going to do the part where, I don't know, we're getting the part of this history that because we become a world superpower, it's so rich and detailed. We're just, our fingers are all over the world, and the things that we're doing are so important but they just kind of shove all this all together. You know, they should probably have like 2 EA push tests, like one from period 1 to period 7 or period 6 and period 7, 8, and 9 together, because it's just a lot. 1920s. Let's go ahead and go to chapter 23 and kind of look at this one, because there's that social probably experience again. You know, if you look at chapter 24, I'm still on period 7, chapter introduction, which is on 408, or the period introduction. But if you look at that, that's probably gonna be social, because look at the Great Depression and the New Deal is on chapter 24. So let's go and look at, just cruise to chapter 23. I wish somebody here could tell me the page number. I gotta do this by myself. I think my neighbors think I'm crazy. It feels like I'm talking to myself. All right, so 475. Let's take a look at this now. Any viewers here? Huh? Yeah, all 13 of you guys are there. All right, so you got the Hoovers, Coolidge, mixed economic development, business, consumerism, a new culture. Yeah, the Jazz Age. Woohoo! Gender roles. Literature of alienation, art and architecture, Harlem Renaissance. That's important. I feel like that. The scope straw. We didn't even talk about that, man. Talking about like religious fundamentalism. It was about Darwinism and stuff. All right. Nativism. Ooh. Sacco and Benedetti, which is like a racist one. Prohibition. Jeez, guys. I don't know. It's a lot of actually really good stuff. All right. Heck with the presidents. Chris Butler asked me what names we need to know. I'm like, I think 6. I think one's Washington and one's Roosevelt. Maybe Reagan. I don't know why we have Reagan in there. Okay, not the economy. Let's go to new culture. So, yeah, I'd probably want to know the Jazz Age. I mean, and I'd say the Jazz Age and women would go together, right? And like when I think of the Jazz Age, I think of flappers. That's like the first thing I would think about. So there's that. Literature of alienation, yeah, whatever. Harlem Renaissance, I think, is like something to understand. A lot of important things there going on. You know, and the nativism, I hope you would understand, was just, I mean, something that we have today is just the idea that we should be the original inhabitant, like America should be all the original people, and the original people not being the Native Americans, but the white Anglo-Saxon Protestants. So KKK, I don't know. Yeah, we know what the KKK are in nativism, I would hope. And I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal. I don't think we need to understand the foreign issues of what's going on with World War I. So there you go for that like kind of cultural experience. All right, since we're still turning the page, I'm going to go over there with that social experience. Sorry. Great Depression, New Deal. I mean, 496 kills it. Causes and effects of the Great Depression. So, I mean, Great Depression, causation, huge. New Deal, continuity change over time would be cool. You know, like how over time it changed and how it got questioned and how things bankrupted and how it was or were not effective. You know, definitely. You know, I think we had that DBQ that talked about its effectiveness, but I could see something like that. So, you know, or I just said effectiveness, so it could be causation. So I'll put New Deal. I'll put causation / CCOT. I'll call my CCOT. All right. So that gets you kind of through all that crap. Supreme Court gets you through that, gets you through a New Deal. Dust Bowl farmers, American Indians. Yeah, I mean, there's that social stuff. Lil Abigail mind map. That's what I'd be doing for those little moments. Just trying to figure out what the heck's going on. All right, World War II. Cause and effects, easy. But everything, I don't know. I mean, you guys, I'll put here key concept. I mean, on all these items, again, I'd be going back to the key concept, like of World War II, what do we know? It's like one massive thing and it has the 4 letters, island hopping, right? I mean, when we get to period 8, the Cold War, it's kind of the same thing. I mean, of all the wars, what would I know? Only Korea and only Vietnam. It's the only ones that are being quoted there. So, I mean, that's that kind of moment that I've been trying to impress upon you guys about going back to the key concepts, you know? And I'm pretty sure like everything that we're writing, which is awesome, and that's why you're not doing it in class, does relate back to that key concept, you know? But kind of use that as a guide to get us there. So, World War II, I think we're done. All right, period 8. Oh, like I said, I don't know, let's go back to those LEQs. Let's see if we did pretty good. Pretty good. Wow, did pretty well. Jeez. Page 547. Analyze how 2 of the following help shape national identity in the 20th century. Well, you know you could talk about that, but you're like trying to figure out what the heck does national identity mean. Yeah, interesting. World War I, safe democracy, Great Depression, the size of government, Spanish-American War. We're going to be an empire, take other people over, or are we not going to take other people over like the press has said not to? World War II, really affirming our authority as an interventionist and perhaps the idea that we're democratic and capitalist. So you see, you know a lot more than you thought you did. I bet you were like, I can't answer that question. I don't know what national identity is. What is an American? We've just been studying them for like 6 months. All right, women's identity, peacetime and wartime experiences, World War I, World War II, hopefully. Progressives, nailed it. New Deal, nailed it. Compare and contrast. So we are killing it on the LEQs over here. Immigration patterns. Immigration. I think we're finding our weakness. I think that the immigration we're not really good at. I mean, we're good up to Manifest Destiny, but after Manifest Destiny, we just go, we don't know what the heck we're talking about. Interesting. Federal government, there's a role. Yeah, see, there's that. You know, there's that kind of what I was talking about, relationship between business and government. I'm up here, I'm gonna put CCOT. You know, that could be the New Deal too. I'll kind of put it up here. You know, or as just a general thing for period 7, like just to remind you guys, relationship between, I mean, there's that other thing. I know we didn't talk about it, but now we are. That Eisenhower, who comes after Truman, he, in his farewell address, he says, we gotta be scared about, we got really concerned about this thing called the military industrial complex, the fact that our factories and our economic way of life is being based solely upon the military. And in San Diego, I think it's like one of the 5th largest economies, you know. All of our sailors that go in Coronado and our Miramar Air Base, they go to San Diego bars, they go to San Diego restaurants, they live in San Diego homes and pay San Diego rent. So we benefit a lot from their economy. And that's what he was kind of talking about, that we're kind of getting dependent on this idea of a standing army in warfare. And it's taking up the most of our tax-paying dollars, so I think he agrees. All right, so I think we killed it on the LEQs. We are moving on. I'm not just droning on. Period 8. Here we go. All right. Bold, underline, period 8. I do see those questions, guys. We're gonna go ahead and take care of you guys. So Truman and the Cold War. I mean, big one. Cold War cause and effect. You're like 65 years of fighting. Yeah, no. And it's still fighting. Yeah, we'll try to get in the nitty gritty into that. Again, I'd probably say on here, I'm gonna put out here a key concept. You know, like I kind of alluded to earlier, it only talks about Vietnam and Korea, so it's only talk about Vietnam and Korea. It does talk about Latin America, so probably want a couple examples of what the heck happened in Latin America, those type of things. So Cold War, uncertain, blah, 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 blah. You know, one thing we didn't talk about, but it's really important, is this guy McCarthyism, you know, and then I would, you know, I could do a comparison to, and then this could help you focus on nativism, like nativism. Like, this is what it is to be an American, we're that. Well, this is the way to be American, not to be a communist, that's for sure. So we got that. His tactics were a little bit crazy too, so as it said kind of right there. I'm already on page 579. We're in Eisenhower. Cold War still. Cold War still. Middle East and the Cold War. Communism in Cuba. Cold War. Okay, so now we're into this, into civil rights, right? So I don't know. I mean, you guys did great stuff on the packet. It's just like civil rights. I mean, we're at the point where you guys will be like, yeah, we just did this like last week. So I don't know how much is going to help, but we'll look at it one more time. You know, I'll put it here just so because we can do it. Consumer culture, like that's where I do that mind map and have that thing ready to go, because it seems like there's LEQs on. There's always a social LEQ, you know, kind of going on that. All right, cool. You know, one thing hopefully you understood was the space race. Obviously, you know that they put up this satellite first, and so we started putting up other people, and then we said we're gonna put something on the moon, and we did. So hopefully you have all that stuff. That's part of the Cold War. LBJ's Great Society, obviously, huge. You know, I'm comparing. I'm gonna do here. Force you guys kind of do a comparison with the New Deal, and put also the Fair Deal. And you could actually even turn this into a LEQ of like, to what extent, you know, were they effective, were they ... I mean, that's the kind of stuff, you know. It's impossible for us to really figure out what's going to be on that test. If I knew what's going to be on the test, guys, you'd be practicing this every time. So I'm really impressed, because I guarantee you guys are doing things that half A-push teachers probably could not do, which is just trying to apply these historical thinking skills and putting them into LEQs. So pretty good if you can do that. So that'd be good. All right, Cuba. So we got Great Society, we got civil rights, we got all that. You know, I put this on your guys' project, and you guys are working on it. You know, war in court and individual rights is important. You know, the Miranda rights, the rights to now an attorney if you can't afford one. Like, we'll actually get one. It's one thing that you're allowed to have counsel. Well, what if you're too poor and you can't afford one? Well, we'll get one to you. So you got all of those things. That's on page 609. Vietnam War, student movement. Sure you guys get that. Assassination. Sucks, dude. It's like all the cool parts of history. We're just like took notes on and looked in black and white crap. All right. Limits of superpower. Nixon. Watergate. I don't think I have anything on Nixon Watergate. I think it's gonna be stupid. You know, we might want to put here though under the Cold War, and I'll kind of like tab this over. You know, an important one that I don't know if you guys really understand is Nixon, détente, and China, and this is kind of like begins the ease, or the I'm gonna say begins to thaw. You know, relationships. I mean, that's kind of like a kind of known for like taking a really gamble, kind of like what Trump's doing with North Korea, and kind of succeeding in developing a relationship with China, which is interesting. Just remember with China, they have cameras all over the country, and they actually give you grades on how you act as a citizen. Like if you jaywalk or cause traffic, you get points off, and then you can't get like loans and access to private schools. Interesting. All right, so keep on going. Watergate, probably not. Jimmy Carter, probably don't care. American Indian Movement, conservative shift. I really see about the new conservative shift. I mean, one thing that I'm going to put here on period 8 is I'm going to say the failure of liberalism and Carter. And, you know, you could do like a comparison with, obviously, with new conservatism, because as you guys kind of read the DBQ, we're actually going to talk about the DBQ for the next couple of days, just one document. Really, it was the failure of liberalism and Carter that everybody's like pissed and they got to conservatism. I know I've said that like a million times, but you know, that's something that'd be kind of cool to understand if you want to get to period 9, which is the rise of new conservatism. Where that come from is a reaction to the failure of the liberalism and Carter. All right, let's get to your guys' questions. The Quasi-War, I don't know what the Quasi-War is. So I'm gonna Google it. I mean, Quasi-War means a war that is undeclared. Like, okay. Oh, let's see. Nice. I don't know. It seems after reading this, whoever asked this question, the Quasi-War, how to affect American Indian relations. I don't know where we got this. We must have got this from like the key concept. I don't know. My assumption is it says this: the unexpected fighting ability of the USA, which destroyed the French West Indian trade, together with the growing weakness of final overthrowing the rule director of France, led China to open it. So it sounds like, number one, it probably increased hostilities between the United States. It sounds like just like the French and Indian War, the Indians were working with the French because of the French's view of the Indians to work with them. So that's what I'm saying. I think American Indians got more and more at risk to be seen as threats and blah, 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 blah. I don't know where that question's coming from. I wouldn't develop too much time on worrying about the Quasi-War. All right, Interstate Commerce Act of 1886. I need to find that in the index. So I'll give you guys a page number to kind of review that. Basically, that it was first used because Congress, obviously, the big problem of the Articles of Confederation, if you guys remember, was the different taxes, the lack of a bank. Like, there's a lot of friggin' issues economically about that. And so the reason why the Articles of Confederation failed at a certain point is because the Articles failed to give the central government or the federal government any strong economic power. And so one of the powers they do is they give Congress the right to control commerce or trade between the states. So that way we can develop a national currency to make things move faster. People aren't freaking putting tariffs on everybody. So I think it's 322 was the first time it shows up. So that's basically what's going on. Now, the first time it's used, 322, the Granger was aired. Okay, well, it's not there. It's just referred to. It's probably next to like 384. But it was used, the interstate commerce. All right, Baha, tell somebody to freaking find a freaking page number for me because I'm tired of looking at this thing. But so as I explained, if Bob, you put the page number next to the question, then I can quickly look in the review book and figure out what's going on. But the Interstate Commerce Act at first was actually used to break up unions, which was kind of interesting, right? They said that railroads need to go from one state to another state without being interrupted. And right now, as a union, if you basically strike and the railroads aren't running and transporting goods, I mean, imagine, guys, if like airports shut down, like just everybody's like airports shut down or buses just, I mean, just that fundamentally the economy, the country, it just stops, right? I mean, literally it stops. So these strikes were a massive threat to the business and the economy of the United States. So governments oftentimes use the Interstate Commerce Act to actually use it legally to break it up. Today, and how it'd be used later is in how it should have been used and how it's used kind of more in the progressive area when they do antitrust and stuff like that, is to basically control trade from one state to another. And this is how they can get their hands in kind of the Sherman Antitrust Act. And these antitrust acts allows the government to have power. If it's not for the Interstate Commerce Act that says, hey, the Congress can regulate trade between states, then they don't have the power to have the Sherman Antitrust Act. So now 322, it says it's like a reaction or something like that. There's a page where it's actually like a key term. It says Interstate Commerce Act. So anyways, that's the Interstate Commerce Act. Just to give you a little bit more relevance today to help you understand it, like this is the massive reason why legal marijuana is not being not allowed to use dollars, because dollars can transport from one state to another. Sorry, I think I'm going to burn my food. So because of that, no, just perfect. So, I can't believe the funny stories you're going to be telling me tomorrow. So like today, that's the reason why that's why the way banks keep away from that, because banks are if you think about it, they trade money throughout the entire United States consistently. And so they won't touch it because federally the Congress believes that marijuana is an illegal subject. This also has to do with taxes between things. So now I used to buy things in Texas where there's no taxes and it just comes shipped over to me. Well, now California goes, whoa, there's trade being happening. There's California taxes that need to be assessed. And so that's what happens now. Cool. 352, you say? I think I looked at that and I was like, no, I think you're looking at the same page number somewhere. Yeah, I mean, this is something that they want to, oh, sorry. Yeah, that's good. State laws. Yeah, so if you remember how this actually started, what it was like certain states were charging different prices for railroads, or the railroads, yeah, certain states were applying different taxes and stuff like that. And so also, if you remember, it was like the difference between a Walmart, like these huge, like corporate people that were trading things, and between mom and pop, like farmers. And they were charging mom and pop farmers much higher rates than people that were using it from one side to another. So they were getting paid cheaper rates if you had long haul rates. So there's kind of a differentiation in prices between different states. And so, there it says in the last sentence on we're looking at page 352, there's the key term Interstate Commerce Act. In the last sentence of the first paragraph, it says the Supreme Court ruled in the case of Wabash versus Illinois that individual states could not regulate interstate commerce. In effect, the court's decision nullified the state regulations achieved by the Grangers. And so, again, this kind of doesn't allow the farmers who were probably making sure that the railroads don't have a high rate to poor farmers and a low rate to rich businessmen, that those state laws actually got seen as unconstitutional because Congress could do it, and Congress was hooking up the railroads the whole time. So we have individual states trying to go against the federal government best friends with the railroads, and through this actual Interstate Commerce Act, they go ahead and the railroads basically get more and more power, and they're able to kind of keep the price setting, because now Congress can say, yeah, you can charge a price there and you can charge there, and we control interstate commerce. So that's basically it. But like I said, kind of its effects is two things. First, it was used to break up unions who were actually trying to strike. And then second of all, it looks like it didn't really support the farmers. And in fact, the farmers would have lost all of the state laws that they were able to create within their little state and maybe within their towns and their communities. And lastly, it kind of leads to what we call the Sherman Antitrust Law, which allows people like Roosevelt to go ahead and bust up like certain large trusts. They're going to use that as one. All right, cool. Can you explain the importance of Turner's Frontier? Yeah, the Frontier Thesis by Frederick Jackson Turner. He's first of all, he's an historian. He's writing this at the end of the close, and he looks at the history of America, and he goes, you know what? The history of America has been defined by us and having a frontier. There's always been an edge, and on that civilization, there's always been an opportunity for young men to make themselves anew, young men to bring new families and start brand new things. We have stories of people going to San Francisco to participate in the gold rush and becoming famously rich, which actually did not happen. More of the shopkeepers, the hotel keepers, the laundromats, the people that served the miners actually made most of the money. But anyways, that was the idea of Frontier. He said, we've always had this kind of what we called open land, this frontier. If you Google what the word frontier looks like in images, I'm sure you're going to see like pastures and open area. Like we've always had that open area, this untamed land that we open and gain. Well, now that the frontier's closed, what is that going to do to America? How are people who maybe want to get land and develop the land, are they going to be able to get it because of what happened? Remember, a lot of immigrants are fleeing fleeing Europe because of this kind of medieval system of like people have land and people and the old wealth. You came to America as this opportunity to get your own piece of land, develop it the way that you want to, make yourself rich, and kind of move forward. And that was the kind of idea. So he's questioning now that the close of the frontier, what's going to happen to those opportunities? He also looks at it historically and he goes, man, everywhere on the frontier is democracy. I mean, if you guys remember, we talked about this the other day, the Northwest Ordinance banned slavery, right? Wyoming in the 1890s gives the women the right to vote throughout all of its elections, which doesn't happen in our Congress till 1920, over 30 years later. So he also says that's very democratic. I mean, if you're American Indian, if you're Mexican American, I think you beg to differ. But nonetheless, he says from his perspective, democracy has always required a frontier. It's along the frontier that people change things. Change isn't happening in New York, where it started. Change certainly happened in Philadelphia or Washington, D.C., or, you know, the places that started this American Revolution and this American history. These guys are setting these bricks, they're doing their own thing. Democracy has changed when people have gone out to new areas and kind of recreated a new society and with new laws in their new state constitutions. And he's just questioning on all of these things, what is going to happen when the frontier closed, right? And my argument is that we found more frontiers. We found Puerto Rico and Cuba and Philippines and multiple other countries. All right, so there you go. Talk about the test of Vietnam War. I saw why they had tension with South Vietnam, but curious why they did. You know, like why did the war occur? You know, really the war is if you really want to know the fundamentals about the war, there's two sides, right? So we have North Vietnam versus South Vietnam. And the two things that you need to think about is this. That the Vietnamese want independence from France. And you're like, France, when did France come in? I'll explain. And also this is happening underneath the Cold War. I explained to somebody there's something called, the reason why the poorer places in the world are called the third world is because the first world was considered the United States, the one that was bustling, and all of its allies. So NATO, that includes England and France and West Germany and all the things that the Marshall Plan that we developed and all of our friends that we've had theoretically forever or since the end of World War II, those were considered the first world. These were the places that were doing well. The second world was called the Soviet Union. And then we had the third world, which was supposedly everybody else. Well, if you look at the Cold War, the third world, whoever was in the third world, this does include Iraq, this includes what we know as the third world today, all the Middle East, Africa, and Asia, right? They sat there and they basically had to always make a decision between who they were going to get help from. Were they going to get money and arms and guns and AK-47s from the Soviet Union? Or we're going to get money, guns, and arms like AR-15s and M16s, excuse me, was a style that they had from the United States. And so Ho Chi Minh actually, at the end of World War II, he actually helps us fight the Japanese back from Indochina. And he comes to the United States in at the end of World War II and to the United Nations, the United Nations. He goes, hey, we have these people, these foreign people in our country who aren't Vietnamese. They're called the French, and they're owning us. And World War II has just ended. And you guys have talked about freeing colonies and freedom and everything else. We want to be free. We need to help the United States. Well, France goes to the United States and goes, remember, we're friends, and we really want those colonies. So the United States says, I'm sorry, Ho Chi Minh, but you and your friends, they are not going to get the help of the United States. We got to help France. And Ho Chi Minh goes, I deeply apologize for that. That sucks because guess what? Now I have to go to the Soviet Union to get help. So he goes to the Soviet Union and now he's considered a communist. And he adopts Soviet Union communism. I mean, he does kind of do that. But if you look at the writings of Ho Chi Minh, who is a leader of North Vietnam, the communist side, the one that's getting support from China and the Soviet Union, he writes always that this is only for independence. It's not really has anything to do with communism or the Soviet Union. He just asked the United States. We said no, so he went to the Soviet Union. So really, that is like the massive cost. So that's why I talk about independence from France. Really, Ho Chi Minh was seeking independence from France. And in the context of the Cold War, as a third world country, he had to decide Soviet Union or United States. And he went, well, I went to the United States first. They said no. They said I'm going to support the French. So I went to the Soviet Union. And that's pretty much how it. Open door policy in China was basically when we went in there were kind of spheres of influence. So there were like ports in different areas of China. So this is the British port, this is the French port. And when we went up there, all the big ports have been taken. And they go, we're like, whoa, we want to go trade with China. China has a lot of people as they are today. It's a huge market. It means a lot of money. A lot of people wanting to buy American things. We want that. And at that time, since all the ports were taken, a deal is made, and we basically almost threatened war. And everybody's like, okay, fine, you're cool with it. We're cool with it. Because I guess we just popped up on the scene with our big Navy and kicking butt. And we basically open the door. And the open door policy is this: anybody can trade with China at any time, at anywhere. We're not going to have, this is the British port where if you can only be British to trade with these guys. You can do it. It kind of opens like a free trade system and opens it up to China. Okay. One of the most important things to remember about the New Deal, it's so specific in all of its acts. So, I mean, yeah, it's like kind of three things. It's like, number one, it was a response to the Great Depression on how to get people back to work and out of unemployment and try to stop the problems that caused it, which was the financial crash. Number two, it was definitely criticized and critiqued by many people. And number three, largely, I think we can agree it was probably almost a failure, which is kind of interesting. You know, it gets a lot of credit for being awesome about the New Deal, but it's largely a failure. So those are the three things I would say. Remember, like, we really think that World War II is what gets us out of the Great Depression. That's really what gets consumerism going, because suddenly Europe needs a lot of American products again, a lot of American items, because they're going to war and their stuff is starting to get blown up. So that's what I would do about the three, and everything else is ended that. How important were the impacts of the Great Depression on? I mean, I told you about my grandmother and grandfather having large sandwiches. How important were the impacts? Yeah, I don't know. They are important. That's a hard question to ask. Yes, they're important. I don't know if you're asking like which one do you need more help with, but yeah, they're important. The impacts obviously would be the New Deal, as you guys can see up there. So Key points, in other words, the purpose of NATO and CETO. Yeah, I don't know CETO. I thought CETO was like the American side, but when we talked about it, I thought it was like the Japan. I mean, the Southeast Asia, Manila Pact, Manila. Okay, yeah, duh. Okay, cool. So I was right. Somebody else told me I thought I was wrong. Anyways, so NATO stands for North Atlantic Treaty Organization, and if you Google the word NATO, put NATO countries. Countries map. There you go. I got NATO countries map, and I'm hitting images. I mean, it shows you right there on Google. So there you go. And there's the United. If you look at the images and you click the first one that says Commons Wikimedia, you'll see the United States and Canada is nice and big, with Iceland that has nobody there, and Greenland, which has just as many people there, which is nobody. Anyways, so these countries were basically work together, and the common idea was this: an attack on one was attack on all, and it's basically to scare Russia and say, hey, Russia, if you screw with this little country called Little West Germany that's super close to you and you cause any problems, we're all going to attack you. So it's basically an alliance system. And you can kind of think of it like a World War II alliance system that was created. CETO stands for the same thing, for Southeast Asian Treaty Organization. And this was basically Southeast Asian ones like the Philippines, who probably had pledged allegiance and to capitalism, democracy in the United States and what we now call the West. And basically had said the same thing. Hey, China and Russia, if you attack, and now maybe North Vietnam, hey, if you attack us, it's going to be an attack on all. Cool. The Great Society by Lyndon B. Johnson is probably his most important piece of work. So the Great Society was basically an extension of the New Deal. It was an aim to definitely ensure that all segments of society got some kind of, kind of like the New Deal, relief and recovery for issues. So let's go to there's this one piece on the New Deal. There's the Great Society, there's this one thing and it just shows you everything. So I'll figure out where that is. It's obviously 8. I was there a second ago. That's Eisenhower, so it's after that. Yeah. So on page 605, that's the Great Society reforms. That little like piece of paper. That little chart is perfect. So what was it? It's when we passed the Food Stamp Act. It's a series of, that's the name of his thing. If we have the War on Terror, which is all over the place, then the Great Society reforms was his effort of helping our society in multiple different ways. So how can you do that? You can do that through food. How can you do that? By educating people through the arts and humanities. How else can you do that? You can help the sick. You can help the people that can't afford healthcare, which is the poor. What else can you do? Increase education. Once again, education. Another thing, why don't you allow more immigrants to come in? Another thing, why don't we go ahead and give you some food? And why don't you get free lunch? So 605, not 645, but 605. So 605 kind of shows you what those are. All right. 7:53. I like you kids, but my Brussels sprouts are cold. And luckily I didn't burn my pot pie. I'm out. Everybody cool? Yeah? No response? No big capitals. Thank you. Bye. That stuff. All right. Cool. All right. Later, guys. Cool. Awesome. Well, hopefully you have an idea about that stuff. And then I think the next step is kind of like what Tuka said. If you guys are still out there, we'll kind of look at and figure out, hey, what are the top 5, of these? So that's what we'll do next. All right, guys. Later.